The laughter, sharp and brittle, echoed off the glass walls of the Denver high-rise office, a sound as cold and sterile as the room itself. It was my sister, Melinda, her head thrown back, a perfectly manicured hand resting on her hip. The sound was a shard of ice in the warm, stagnant air of my humiliation. "Pathetic people like you don't deserve credit anyway," she said, her voice dripping with a condescending amusement that was far more painful than outright anger would have been. I sat there, frozen in the plush, ridiculously expensive leather chair I'd helped her pick out 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. In fact, irony was the theme of the day. Even the motivational quotes framed in minimalist gold behind her massive mahogany desk, sleek, modern typography spelling out words like integrity and vision, were ones I had designed and printed myself. They were a gift for her first office, a symbol of the future we were supposed to be building together. Staring at the woman who had just fired me from the company I'd built from the ground up, the woman who was my own flesh and blood, I felt a strange sort of disconnect, as if I were watching a scene from a movie. This couldn't be my life. The company, Franklin Realty, wasn't just her job, it was supposed to be our future. The irony was a bitter pill. My name is Tessa Franklin, and for 14 years, I have been the invisible force, the silent architect behind my sister's real estate empire. At 43, I am a graphic designer and marketing strategist, a woman who had foolishly, naively believed that family meant partnership, that a promise was as binding as any contract. Every logo, every website, every slick brochure, every lead-generating sales funnel that had transformed Melinda's fledgling one-woman operation into a multi-million-dollar powerhouse, had come from my hands, my creativity, my sleepless nights. I never charged her a penny. Not a single invoice. Because whenever I'd brought it up, she would smile that dazzling, dismissive smile of hers and say, "Tessa, don't be silly. This is for us. It's our future." But sitting in that sterile office, watching her smirk while her best friend, Chelsea York, lounged in the corner, idly scrolling through Instagram on her phone, I realized with a sickening lurch that there was no R anymore. There probably never had been. Chelsea was the reason for this sudden, brutal amputation from my own life's work. A 26-year-old influencer whose biggest professional accomplishment was amassing 50,000 followers by posting workout videos in designer athletic wear. Her resume, if you could call it that, consisted of sponsored posts for protein powders and teeth whitening kits. And this was the woman Melinda thought could replace 14 years of my expertise. "You're out," Melinda had said just moments before, not even bothering to look up from the paperwork on her desk. It was the same tone she used to dismiss a caterer. Chelsea, a vision of curated perfection in a ridiculously expensive athleisure set, let out a soft giggle from her corner. She was the fresh perspective Melinda had spoken of. "Chelsea brings a younger energy to the brand," Melinda had explained, finally gracing me with her gaze, her eyes cold and distant. "A fresh perspective, you know." I looked from Melinda's impassive face to Chelsea, who was now examining her brightly painted nails with feigned disinterest. The younger energy she brought was the energy of entitlement, of surface-level gloss with no substance. "What about everything I built here?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Melinda's reply was the final, devastating blow. "You should be grateful I let you help," she said, her eyes meeting mine with that same cold, dismissive stare I'd seen her use on difficult clients. "Most sisters wouldn't have been so generous." The word generous hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Generous. For 14 years of free, all-consuming work. For building her entire digital presence. For creating the brand identity that made her millions. For designing every single marketing campaign that brought in her biggest clients. Chelsea giggled again, a high, tinkling sound that grated on my raw nerves. "Don't worry, Tessa," Chelsea chirped, a fake, pitying smile on her perfectly glossed lips. "I'm sure you'll find something. Maybe try Fiverr?" That's when it happened. Something inside me, a belief in family and loyalty that I had clung to for decades, didn't just crack, it shattered. It was replaced not by hot anger, but by something much colder, something more calculating. A chilling clarity. I stood up slowly, my movements deliberate. I gathered my purse and the single notebook I'd brought to what I thought was going to be a strategy meeting. "You're right," I said, my voice even as I walked toward the door. "I should be grateful." Neither of them caught the steel edge in my voice. They were too busy celebrating their brilliant business decision, their coup. They were too busy to notice that I hadn't said I was grateful, just that I should be. Growing up, Melinda had always been the golden child. 3 years younger, she possessed a kind of effortless charm that made the world bend to her will. Teachers overlooked her missing homework, and our parents excused her broken curfews. She floated through life on a cloud of charisma, while I was the responsible one, the quiet one who cleaned up her messes and helped her study for tests she hadn't prepared for. I was the anchor that allowed her to be the beautiful, glittering kite. When she announced she wanted to start a real estate business 8 years ago, I was working as a freelance graphic designer, struggling to build my own client base in Denver's competitive market. Melinda, with a freshly minted real estate license and zero business acumen, needed help with just a few small things. A logo, maybe. A simple website. "Think of it as an investment in our family's future," she'd said over dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant downtown, the one our parents always took us to for celebrations. "Once the business takes off, we'll be partners. 50-50 split on everything." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister, and despite her flaws, I thought our bond meant something. So I designed her logo, an elegant script with subtle mountain silhouettes that perfectly captured the essence of the Denver luxury market. Then came the website, clean and professional, with custom photography I'd arranged and edited myself. Then the business cards, the brochures, the social media templates. "Just one more thing" became Melinda's favorite phrase. One more marketing campaign. One more client presentation. One more complete rebrand when she decided to expand into luxury properties. Our parents praised her business acumen constantly. "Melinda's such a natural entrepreneur," they'd say at family dinners. "She's built something incredible from nothing." From nothing. As if the hundreds of hours I'd poured into her success were nothing. But I kept working, kept believing in that future she promised. When she bought her first office, the very one I was now being kicked out of, I helped her choose the furniture and designed the interior graphics. When she hired her first employee, I created the training materials and the employee handbook. When she won Realtor of the Year 3 years running, I designed the marketing materials that announced it to the world. I watched her grow from selling starter homes to dealing exclusively with multi-million-dollar properties. Her client list read like a who's who of Denver's elite, tech executives, professional athletes, entertainment industry moguls. The commissions were enormous, and the success should have been ours to share. Instead, I remained the invisible sister. At industry events, she'd introduce me as "my sister who helps out with some design stuff." If clients complimented the marketing materials, she'd smile and accept the praise without ever mentioning my name. When other realtors asked about her secret to such polished branding, she'd talk about her natural eye for design. The promises of partnership had faded into vague mentions of someday and when things settled down. But things never settled down. They only grew bigger, more successful, more profitable. And I remained exactly where I'd started, working for free, building someone else's empire. The first real crack in my faith appeared 6 months ago, during our quarterly review meeting. I'd spent 3 weeks developing a comprehensive digital marketing strategy that would have expanded Melinda's reach into the commercial real estate sector. The presentation was flawless: detailed market analysis, projected ROI, implementation timeline, budget allocations. "This is impressive work," Melinda had said, flipping through the bound presentation I'd printed and assembled myself. "Really impressive." I felt a surge of hope. Maybe this would finally be the moment she acknowledged my contributions properly. Maybe this would be when she brought up the partnership we'd discussed for years. Instead, she closed the folder and slid it across the desk toward me. I'm going to hold off on this for now. Chelsea's been giving me some ideas about social media marketing that might be more our speed. Chelsea had been hanging around the office more frequently, offering unsolicited advice about authentic engagement and influencer partnerships. Her suggestions usually involved hiring her friends to post about properties in exchange for free clothing or restaurant gift cards. Melinda, I said carefully, commercial real estate could increase your annual revenue by 40%. Chelsea's ideas are fine for residential social media, but they won't work for attracting serious commercial investors. I appreciate your input, she replied in the tone she used with overeager clients, but I think I know my business better than anyone. My business? Not our business anymore. That same week, I discovered she'd implemented one of my campaign ideas without credit, presenting it to a major client as her own innovative strategy. When I confronted her about it, she laughed it off. Come on, Tessa. We're family. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, right? Except it only worked one way. My ideas became hers, but her profits never became mine. The final crack appeared when she hired a new assistant and offered her a starting salary that was more than I'd earned in the past 2 years of freelance work combined. When I mentioned this seemed unfair, given my contribution to the company's success, Melinda's response was swift and cold. You chose to work for free. That's not my problem. Choose. As if I hadn't been promised a partnership. As if 14 years of building her empire wasn't worth compensation. And so, here I was, walking out of her office for the last time. But I felt strangely calm. The betrayal hurt, a deep, aching wound, but it was overshadowed by a crystal-clear realization: I had more power in this situation than either of them understood. For 14 years, I had been meticulous about protecting my work. Every logo, every website design, every marketing campaign I'd created remained under my copyright. The informal contracts we'd never formally signed worked in my favor. Without explicit transfer agreements, all intellectual property belonged to the creator. That was me. More importantly, Melinda had never bothered to understand the technical side of her business. She didn't know that I owned the primary domain registration, controlled the hosting account, and held administrative access to every digital platform her business relied on. Why would she? I'd always handled the computer stuff while she focused on real business. I drove home to my downtown apartment, the proposal folder still sitting on my passenger seat like a monument to wasted effort. But instead of throwing it away, I filed it carefully in my home office. That research would be useful, just not for Melinda's benefit. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. Hey. Super excited to work with your designs. Can you send passwords ASAP? Want to start making changes today. Winking face. The emoji enthusiasm made my eye twitch. I set the phone aside without responding. Over the next few hours, I made a systematic inventory of everything I'd built for Melinda's company. The main website, built on my hosting account with my administrative credentials. The customer relationship management, CRM, system I'd researched, purchased, and configured. The email marketing platform with 14 years of client data and automated campaigns. The social media accounts I'd created and managed. The cloud storage system containing every client presentation, marketing template, and brand asset. All of it traced back to accounts I owned and controlled. I opened my laptop and began documenting everything methodically. Screenshots of account ownership, copies of original design files, records of domain registrations, all timestamped and organized. If this became a legal matter, I wanted comprehensive evidence. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang. Melinda. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text. Tessa, Chelsea needs the logins. Send them now. I ignored it. The final step was the most important. Backing up everything valuable, and then changing the passwords on every single account. This wasn't out of spite. These were my creations, my intellectual property, and I had every legal right to protect them. At 11 p.m., I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Tessa, this is David Chen from Franklin Realty." I recognized the voice of Melinda's top-performing agent. "I'm sorry to bother you so late, but we've got a major problem. None of our systems are working. The website's down, emails are bouncing, and I've got clients trying to schedule showings who can't reach us. Have you talked to Melinda about this? I've been trying to reach her for hours, she's not answering her phone." His voice was laced with panic. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but I've got a $2 million deal that's supposed to close Monday morning. My clients are panicking because they can't access the virtual tour or property documents." I felt a twinge of sympathy for David. He was a good agent who'd always treated me respectfully. But his problem wasn't with me. "David, I'm no longer affiliated with Franklin Realty," I said, my voice calm and even. "You'll need to work with Melinda and Chelsea to resolve any technical issues." "Chelsea? The Instagram girl? Tessa, she doesn't know anything about our systems. We need you." "Then you should discuss that with Melinda," I replied. "She made her position very clear today." After I hung up, I sat back and considered what I'd done. Some might call it revenge. But it felt more like reclamation. For 14 years, I'd built something valuable and given it away freely, in exchange for promises that were never fulfilled. Now, I was simply taking back what had always been mine. My phone rang again. This time it was Melinda, and this time I answered. "Tessa, what the hell have you done?" she shrieked, her voice a frantic, ugly sound. I stopped being confused, I replied calmly. "You wanted fresh ideas and younger energy. Figure it out. You can't destroy my business like this." "I'm not destroying anything," I said, the cold clarity still coursing through me. "I'm just no longer maintaining it for free." By Monday morning, Franklin Realty was in complete chaos. The phone calls started early. Panicked agents, confused clients, angry contractors who couldn't access project documents. Melinda's carefully constructed empire was crumbling in real time. I learned about the fallout from multiple sources. David sent me a text around 8 a.m., "3 agents quit this morning. Clients are threatening to sue. Whatever happened, this is bad." Social media told the rest of the story. Chelsea had managed to post a cheerful "new week, new energy" message on her personal Instagram, but Franklin Realty's accounts remained silent. The company's professional image, built over 14 years, had vanished overnight. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Harrison Miller, one of Denver's most prominent real estate attorneys, and a client I'd worked with on several high-end marketing campaigns. "Tessa, I heard about the situation with Franklin Realty. I'm representing 3 of their former clients who are considering legal action over failed closings. But I'm calling because I have a proposition for you." He explained that several of Melinda's former agents were looking to join new firms but wanted to work with someone who understood luxury real estate marketing. They had specifically asked for me. "I'm expanding my real estate division," Harrison continued. "I need someone who can handle sophisticated branding and marketing for high-net-worth clients. Interested?" 3 hours later, I was sitting in Harrison's downtown office, signing a contract as Director of Marketing for Miller and Associates Real Estate. The salary was triple what I'd been making as a freelancer, plus profit sharing and full creative control over all marketing initiatives. By 4 p.m., I'd received calls from 2 other real estate firms and a luxury property development company. Word was spreading quickly through Denver's tight-knit real estate community. Tessa Franklin was available, and everyone knew she was the creative force behind Franklin Realty's success. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Chelsea. Melinda told me to ask if you'll come back. She says she'll pay you this time." I deleted the message without responding. 3 weeks later, I was settling into my new office at Miller and Associates when Harrison knocked on my doorframe. have you seen this?" he asked, handing me a printed email. It was a press release announcing that Franklin Realty was rebranding as Elite Denver Properties under new management. I read through the announcement with interest. Melinda was listed as a founding partner, but the CEO position had been given to someone named Robert Hayes, a veteran realtor I'd never heard of. Her investors had forced the management change. Apparently, losing 30% of their agent roster in 2 weeks was the final straw. Chelsea wasn't mentioned at all. That afternoon, I received a certified letter from Melinda's attorney, demanding the return of proprietary business assets and confidential information. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who responded with a detailed explanation of intellectual property law and copyright ownership. Within a week, that legal posturing dissolved into silence. Meanwhile, my new career was flourishing. The marketing campaigns I developed for Miller and Associates generated a 40% increase in qualified leads within the first month. 3 of Melinda's former top-performing agents had joined our firm, bringing their client relationships and first-hand knowledge of what made my strategies so effective. The property management expansion I'd proposed to Melinda became a reality at Miller and Associates. Within 6 months, we'd signed contracts to manage 4 high-end developments, generating additional revenue streams that exceeded my original projections. On a Thursday evening in November, I received a text from our youngest agent. "Just closed the Morrison Mansion for $4.2 million. Buyer said our virtual tour was the most impressive they'd ever seen. Thank you for making us look so professional." I smiled and filed the message with dozens of similar notes. It felt good to be appreciated. But more importantly, it felt good to build something that was truly mine. As I reflected on my journey from free labor to respected professional, I realized that sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success built on the foundation of your own worth, and watching others finally understand what they threw away.